name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and here are the top international news highlights for the past 24 hours. Today is December 3rd, 2025. It is 1:21 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top international news highlights. OECD says global growth remains resilient, but warns trade tensions and tariff regimes pose risks ahead. I wonder who he's referring to. The OECD's December 25th Economic Outlook released today projects a global growth of 3.2% this year, slightly ahead of previous estimates, and expects the U.S. economy to grow about 2%. At the same time, the report flagged that rising trade tensions, tariff regimes, and uncertainty in global supply chains, especially influenced by AI investment booms and shifting trade policies, could slow growth and destabilize trade flow. Vladimir Putin U.S. envoy talks in Moscow end without a peace deal for Ukraine as threats escalate. A high-profile 5-hour meeting at the Kremlin between Putin and U.S. envoys, including close advisors, failed to produce a compromise to end the war in Ukraine. Immediately after, Putin warned European powers against war, saying any European-initiated war on Russia would lead to swift defeat for Europe. Global reaction is tense as this raises the stakes for renewed conflict and destabilizes diplomatic expectations. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte cautions no consensus yet for Ukraine's membership, alliance cohesion in doubt. Ahead of NATO deliberations, Rutte, it's R-U-T-T-E, I think it's Rutte, said there is currently no consensus among member states for admitting Ukraine into the alliance. Given the war and rising Russian threats, this adds friction to NATO's unity and raises questions about Ukraine's security assurances, which may shift how the war and European security are recalibrated. Oil prices steady amid geopolitical uncertainty. Energy markets stay volatile. Crude oil benchmarks held their ground today as traders weighed risks from ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe, especially Black Sea shipping threats and tensions involving U.S.-Venezuela diplomatic friction. The energy market outlook remains uncertain, with supply disruptions and political risk feeding volatility. Major fire in Hong Kong. City orders judge-led inquiry, 15 under suspicion for manslaughter. We went over this recently. It is the worst fire in history for the region in 70 years. It killed at least 156 people. 15 arrested, 12 under corruption probe, tied to unsafe renovation work and lacks building oversight. First overseas trip by Pope Leo, the XIV, that's the 14th, I think, concludes calls for peace across Middle East, focus on religious and regional stability. On the final day of his trip to Lebanon, the Pope prayed with roughly 100,000 Lebanese and urged regional actors to reject war and promote reconciliation. He also visited the site of a major 2020 port explosion as a symbolic act of solidarity and called on leaders to commit a long-term peace and dialogue, a rare high-visibility moment in global religious diplomacy. Emerging multi-block space race, rising international competition in lunar and deep space missions. As multiple states and commercial space actors accelerate plans for lunar infrastructure and deep space initiatives, analysts warn the cooperative model that defined the past decades may fracture. New blocks, often aligned with opposing geopolitical blocks, are forming, potentially reshaping access to space science, cooperation, and control over resource-rich territories beyond Earth. OPEC Plus unveils a new oil quota system based on maximum sustainable capacity, MSC, reshaping future global supply dynamics. Under the new plan, taking effect in 2027, member countries will have quotas tied to audited sustainable production capacity rather than fixed volume targets. The move will likely prompt major investments in production capacity from low-cost producers and could pressure sanctioned or higher-cost producers. This could reshape global oil markets and influence U.S. energy and trade strategy. Taiwan Strait tensions. Republic of China, Taiwan says the People's Liberation Army China periodically stages mock attacks on foreign naval vessels in the strait, raising regional security concerns. Taiwan disclosed that Chinese forces conduct stimulated attacks on foreign warships passing through the strait, a move likely meant as deterrence, but which increases risk for miscalculation given U.S. interest and naval presence in the region. This signals growing maritime tension in Asia. The U.S. administration suspends all immigration applications, green cards, and citizenship from 19 non-European countries, a major policy shift. The sudden freeze affects dozens of countries and will likely block many legal applications, dramatically affecting immigration flows, communities, and long-term demographic and labor force patterns. The move is already prompting legal, humanitarian, and international reactions. Donald Trump pardons a former Honduran president convicted on cocaine trafficking charges, triggering sharp outcry from U.S. Democrats and foreign policy critics. The decision drew widespread condemnation as the pardoned figure had been convicted in U.S. courts. The pardon raises questions about the administration's anti-narcotics credibility and risks complicating cooperation with Central American and Latin American partners. There's been a lot of signs that people involved with MAGA have been doing cocaine over the past few years. So it's suspicious that he is essentially pardoning a coke dealer. And then on top of that, Donald Trump is also trying to engage in a coup in Honduras by interfering with their election. Diplomatic realignment. The U.S. and Brazil hold trade and security talks with President Trump and Brazil's Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, directly discussing trade issues and organized crime operation. The call signals emerging rapprochement between Washington and Brasilia and could presage new trade agreements or shifts in U.S. Latin America security policy with implications for trade flows, migration pressure, and regional stability. Devastating flooding and cyclones ravage Asia. Southeast Asia, floods and landslides, catastrophic death toll, 1,100 people, and displacing hundreds of thousands. Indonesia, 604 people have died in the archipelago, with nearly 300,000 displaced. Sri Lanka, the country declared a state of emergency following a cyclone, 366 death toll, over 1.3 million people affected. Thailand. UN agencies have warned that extreme rainfall is on the rise in the Asia-Pacific region, underscoring the growing vulnerability of these communities to climate change. Escalating tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela. Airspace closure. Venezuela has formally condemned the U.S. after Donald Trump declared via Truth Social that all airspace around Venezuela is closed. Military threat. The U.S. president also stated the U.S. is prepared to launch attacks inside Venezuela itself. Venezuela's vice president called on other oil-producing states in OPEC to oppose any U.S. military action, asserting the U.S. intends to take control of Venezuela's oil reserves. Gaza death toll has surpassed 70,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry. Video has emerged, West Bank killings video has emerged showing Israeli forces fatally shooting two Palestinian men in the occupied West Bank at point blank after they appeared to be surrendering to troops. Iran military exercises. Iran and several key U.S. adversaries were reported to be sharing tactical and technological lessons during a 5-day military exercise in Iran. Warning on AI job displacement in Asia-Pacific. UN economists warned on Tuesday that millions of jobs across the Asia-Pacific region could be at risk as the adoption of artificial intelligence surges in wealthier nations. Growing inequality, the UN report emphasized that the AI revolution risks splitting the world into a wealthy few and the impoverished, complicating efforts for poorer countries to achieve basic digital access and literacy. International Human Rights and Religious Freedom World AIDS Day, December 1st, marked World AIDS Day, focusing global attention on the ongoing fight against HIV and AIDS, the reduction of stigma, and the achievement of health equality. Iran director imprisoned. Iranian authorities sentenced award-winning director Jafar Panahi to a year in prison for propaganda activities against the state. Russia and Sudan finalize naval base deal. Sudan's military government has offered Russia a 25-year naval base agreement at Port Sudan on the Red Sea. Why would you be allowing Putin to station? He is an aggressor. Okay, so yeah, all the warnings that I have been trying to give people really seem to be coming to fruition. I talked previously about concerns going on the maps that Putin is likely the spearhead of a coup, a global threat being conducted by BRICS. Part of the goal is to destroy the United States economically, because it's a country that has the most money of any country in the world and also has a military that Putin wants to get his hands on. So we're looking at a... Give me a moment. Yeah, if you're actually paying attention to what I'm doing, which, like, nobody is, I've been making maps, I've been looking at maps, and you see, the thing is I think that Putin is trying to engage in expansionism, and I think that he's got certain nations that are helping him with this, and I think part of the goal is going to be to take out NATO. And I think that he's trying to establish himself on land bridges to give him easy access to places, full continents, like Africa, flank around NATO so that he can destroy NATO. And so what we're seeing here is very comparable. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are currently working side by side at the same time, engaging in very similar military tactics right now. Okay? Here's Qatar. Oh, it's right here. Here's Qatar. Here is where Putin is going to be stationing in the port, Sudan. Putin's going to be stationed right here. That's going to give him easy access to Africa. Okay? Now, what is Donald Trump doing that's similar? Okay, I've expressed a lot of concern about this area, the Gulf region. Alright, so Donald Trump is trying to stir the pot by, denying any migrants, like trying to send people back to Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. So this whole area is being ostracized and alienated by Donald Trump. Okay, he's been shooting people in this area. And I'm sure that he has this locked down. But he's also engaging in a coup right here. Now, if you zoom in, this is adjacent to El Salvador. So then if they're making the same military moves at the same time on different parts of the globe. On the opposite sides of the globe, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are making the same moves at the same time militarily. And that is seizing land assets on bridging territories. If Donald Trump is endorsing candidates in Honduras, he is engaging in a coup. And I think it's happening for the reasons that I think it's happening for. We're so screwed. Nobody cares enough to actually fix this. Anyways, you can go to my shop and get my Waffles Was Right About Everything hat. It comes in a variety of colors. Not happy to see this as far as thinking that there's any sort of future ahead of me in life right now. I see none. I have no faith or optimism at this point in time. Sudan's military government has offered Russia a 25-year naval base agreement at Port Sudan on the Red Sea. The deal would allow Moscow to station up to 300 troops and dock up to 4 warships at the strategic location. In exchange, Sudan is expected to receive advanced Russian anti-aircraft systems and other weaponry to aid in its ongoing civil war against Rapid Support Forces, RSF. This solidifies a major Russian military foothold in the region, dramatically impacting security dynamics in East Africa. By the time people figure out what is going on, it'll be too late. Honduran election results under scrutiny amid U.S. intervention, political tensions. The presidential election in Honduras is a knife-edge technical tie between the two leading candidates, with only a few votes separating them. U.S. involvement, the political tension is amplified by a high-profile U.S. political intervention, a coup. The U.S. president has threatened that Honduras will face hell to pay if the country's election commission prematurely stops counting votes or if the results are altered. Donald Trump is engaging in a coup in Honduras. The current administration has also generated controversy by pardoning former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez from a previous conviction. New climate data challenges forest nitrogen loss models. A new study led by researchers at U.S.A. Riverside has challenged a long-held assumption in climate modeling regarding the impact of warming on forests. Ooh, baby. Baby kitty. Contrary to previous predictions, the study found that warming may reduce, not increase, nitrogen emissions from forest soils, particularly in drier regions. In these areas, heat causes the soil to dry out, slowing down microbial activity and reducing the release of gases like nitric oxide and nitrous oxide, a potent greenhouse gas. This suggests that climate models need to be significantly refined to couple warming and moisture data, as the interaction between heat and drought is more complex than previously assumed. Tajikistan reinforces a border following drone strikes. Security Central Asia Tajikistan announced it is heavily reinforcing its long border with Afghanistan. The move follows drone strikes that killed 2 Tajik and 3 Chinese citizens in the past week, which the Tajik government claims originated from Afghanistan. This event heightens security risks in a volatile region already grappling with instability and cross-border militant activity. WHO provides emergency funds to cyclone-hit Sri Lanka. The World Health Organization provided $175,000 in emergency funds to Sri Lanka to scale up health response following the devastating cyclone Ditwa. This concludes today's news report for international news. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna go now. Bye.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA. Abolish MAGA. Fuck you, MAGA.